Guys, can you please drop a message on the group and call your friends?
Maybe you call them.
Yeah, just call them.
Uh, Please ask your friends to come fast. This is really embarrassing. I mean, it's not exactly a desirable situation.
Good morning, everyone. A warm welcome to everyone present here today. My name is Amrita, and I'm delighted to stand in front of you here as the manager of Alumni Association and welcome you all and our honored guests. It gives me immense pleasure to see such a wonderful gathering for a very special series called Friends of Iifm, which has been a success since its inception. Today, we have the privilege of having Ms. Varalakshmi ma'am with us as our esteemed speaker. Ma'am, please allow us to welcome you with a token of appreciation. Our speaker today, Ms. Varalakshmi Vemuru, is an accomplished alumni of Iifm from the batch of 1991. She is currently serving as the practice manager for the Social Sustainability and Inclusion Global Practice at the World Bank. Welcome, ma'am. Next, I would like to express a heartfelt gratitude to our respected and ever-energetic director, Dr. K. Ravichandran. His support, dedication, and visionary leadership has played an important role in strengthening the Alumni Association and the institution. Welcome, sir. Next, I extend a warm welcome to the President of the Alumni Association, Mr. Sandeep Chakravarti, whose enthusiasm, dedication, efforts have taken association to great heights. He currently serves as the Joint Secretary in the Ministry of External Affairs and have been appointed as the next Ambassador of India to the Republic of Indonesia. Welcome, sir. Also, for all the students present here, I'd give a brief introduction about the Alumni Association. The Alumni Association was established in 2019 with the aim to foster a strong and robust network of alumni dedicated to the growth and development of the institution. Our mission revolves around providing unwavering support and valuable resources to the current student, the alumni, and the institute. Presently, our association proudly unites more than 1,000 distinguished alumni from various courses, fields of expertise. This ever-expanding network community of accomplished graduates plays a major role in the continuous progress and excellence of Iifm. Now, I would like to invite our director, Dr. K. Ravichandran, to address you all for this event.
His Excellency, the Ambassador Designate for Indonesia, and the dynamic President of Alumni Association, Madam Varalakshmi, dear faculty members, students. Today, we are having two of our illustrious alumni of this institute, Madam Varalakshmi and His Excellency Sandeep Chakravarti. I am very much elated to have them here. Though the Friends of Iifm is being held on a regular basis through virtual mode, I requested the President to have the Iifm Friends of Series lectures in the campus itself. Thanks for accepting our request and bringing a versatile personality like Varalakshmi ma'am. Friends, I have said time and again, more than your classroom learning, your engagement in various other activities, extracurricular, co-curricular activities and peer-to-peer learning will shape you well. And in that endeavor, our alumni association, they are working 24/7 and lot of thought process are being held discussions are there, how best we can shape you all apart from the structural programs which are conducted at the institute. So Alumni Association is playing a onerous task in that direction. And they have a series of events which have been chalked out for 2023, and you are fortunate to witness and listen in today's event. For any academic institution or research institution, alumni is the strength. If you have a strong and vibrant alumni base, there is no stopping for the institute. They bring new ideas, new energy, and make this campus much more vibrant. So in that effort, being an alum of this institute, I also contribute whatever little I can do for the Alumni Association. Our president is so dynamic. I was little worried when he has been selected for Indonesian assignment, how we are going to steer the Alumni Association. As an ambassador, he has to shoulder greater responsibilities. So whether he would be in a position to give some time for the association, this was my concern. But person like our president, he will always find time for Iifm. In spite of his busy schedule at South Block, whenever I had gone to meet him, not to discuss about my personal issues, to discuss about Iifm issues, he was always available. In between meetings, I used to sit in front of him. He dictates some notes, and it takes 5 minutes to speak to me, and then again get engaged with his work. So that kind of commitment our president has got. I am sure even if he goes to Indonesia, his heart will always be there for Iifm. So with that assurance from his side, I welcome Madam Varalakshmi, and she is working in World Bank, as you know very well. She has risen from a level to this position means the kind of hard work and dedication which she brought into her working ethos, that only helped her and seen her to reach such an acclaimed position. So we want to bring such people to inspire you all, so that when you pass out, you should also reach to the height where our two alumni are there. So you should also reach to that height. If not that, better than that. So with this, I once again welcome Madam Varalakshmi and His Excellency Sandeep Chakravarti and all the students. Today, this day, the 29th July, will get into the annals of Iifm history. Thank you so much.
Now, I'd like to invite Sandeep sir to tell you more about the Alumni Association and today's event.
Thank you, Amrita. Thank you, Dr. Ravi Chandran, and thank you, Varalakshmi, and thanks to all of you. We are sorry to wake you up after late night watching Netflix and spending time on WhatsApp University and social media. It's difficult to get up and come to a talk on Saturday morning. No, am I wrong? But there was a purpose of doing this here because, of course, what Ravi mentioned. I call him Ravi because we are batchmates. We were hostel mates. We were in the same Kaveri hostel in Mussoorie in the Lal Bahadur Shastri Academy. And Ravi, after doing IIFM PG diploma, he joined the correct IFS. I also thought that my exam was for forest service, but eventually I found out it was for foreign service. So we are both IFS, but I am in the wrong service. But I have spent more than 27 years in the IFS, but somehow my heart beats for forestry, for IFM, and I feel very comfortable in this sector, in this milieu, and I connect. I feel, I was telling our treasurer yesterday, I drove from Indore to Bhopal with another colleague of ours. He is the joint treasurer of the association. And I told him that, you know, whatever I am today as a person, not maybe as a professional, is because of my time in IIFM. And we were the pioneers. We didn't have anything. Even the infrastructure that we have today, this used to be the library, and we used to play badminton in the next room. That was when we came here in 1989. And we were 20 in our batch, and you are 200. So, you know, you can imagine the change that has happened, and the change which has happened in the last few months since the dynamic director joined. Now, you know, you may be having this question. Of course, we will hear Varalakshmi. But I want to say one thing which Ravi alluded to but didn't mention openly, is that Varalakshmi has reached where she is on the basis of her IIFM degree. She has not acquired any other professional qualification, except, of course, through her work experience. She has been 32 years or more in this sector. Her only degree is a PhD diploma from IIFM. And I am not saying to any way, you know, demean her. I am saying it with lot of pride and affection and lot of, you know, maybe hubris, that, you know, that degree has taken where she is, and it has been recognized, and she has been able to perform. And she has held only 3 jobs in her career. She started with Terry, then she went to the field in ActionAid, and then she joined World Bank. She was recruited locally in India, and then she was so good that they took her to Washington, DC. She was there for so many years, and now she runs the office, the East European office from Vienna, and she's based out of Vienna. When I came to know that she is coming all the way from Vienna to spend vacation here in India, I caught hold of her, and Ravi was always mentioning that we should have an in-person Friends of IIFM event, and I thought this is the best opportunity. So we are very grateful that, you know, Varalakshmi found time from her brief vacation in India, where she has come to meet her family, to come and speak to you and inspire you in IIFM. Now you may ask, why have the Alumni Association? And you may also ask, why have this Friends of IIFM lecture? Why have the Alumni Association? The answer is very simple. When you are 2 years in this campus, your director and his faculty and his team takes care of you. And then they place you. There is recruitment and you are placed out. When you go out of IIFM, in this wide world, then who will take care of you? Who will hold your hand? Who will guide you? It is the Alumni Association. So and you know, small things, just a word of encouragement, just a joke, just a WhatsApp from somebody whom you don't even know is so heartwarming, so encouraging. I went to Indore. I was speaking at the War College in Mau, and I knew Rohit was there. Rohit lives in Indore, works in Indore, and I asked him how to come from Indore to Bhopal. Rohit said, "Sir, आप चिंता मत कीजिए, आप मेरे ऑफिस आ जाइए, मैं आपको ड्राइव करके." उसको कोई जरूरत नहीं थी भोपाल आने की. हम दोनों 4 घंटे गाड़ी में बैठे, हम गप्पे आए, गाना सुने, रास्ते में समोसे पकौड़े खाए, चाय पी, और वो मुझे यहाँ IIFM रात को छोड़ गया. And this is happening everywhere. Everywhere we go, we connect with I am meeting people whom I don't even know. I went with the vice president to London for the King's coronation. So I have formed a WhatsApp group called IIFM Alumni Europe. And I put it that I'll be there, and if you want to meet the vice president, come to the hotel where he was staying. And some of them responded, 3 of them turned up, and मैं उनको ले गया उपराष्ट्रपति जी से मिलाने. So what happened was, he looked at them and says, I said, "Sir, they are from my college." He said, "Oh, इनको देख के लगता है कि कॉलेज की गलती कुछ नहीं है. आप समझे जोक को? You got the joke? And then they took pictures with him, he chatted with them, then they had dinner. So, wherever we are, there are people from Iifm, connect to them. And this association is new. We lost 2 years because of COVID, and the new governing body took over in November 2019. In fact, we did an event here. And we are trying to, we had 3 goals when we started. One was to support the institute because institute was in difficulty. Second was to support the alumni, networking and helping each other. And third was to help the students who are in the college or the institute. Now, thanks to Ravichandran, the first concern is over. Now we don't have to bother about where the institute is going. We see a bright future for the institute. He's taken care of everything. So our task is now taking care of the students, and they're ensuring their training, ensuring their capacity building, supporting the institute, and also when you pass out, networking and keeping you in our fold. That is our second objective. On the first objective, I'm happy to inform you that last year we did workshops for placement workshops. We did most of them online. This year we will do them hybrid, and we already have selected 8 areas on which we will focus, prepare you before your placement interviews. They are, and this has been done after some consultation with students and alumni. The 8 groups are microfinance, ESG, sustainability consulting, this is one group. Third is climate and carbon. Fourth is nature-based solutions. Fifth is rural livelihoods and development sector. Sixth is monitoring and evaluation. Seventh is forest-based industry. And eighth is entrepreneurship. So on these 8, baskets or buckets of, job opportunities, what we will do is we will hold workshops for the senior batch who are going to pass out. So that's going to start sometime next month. So it's open to all. So please join. So this is one of the activities that we do for preparing students for the placement. Other sets of activities, of course, will be done by the institute. Now coming to why we do the Friends of Iifm, giving you an exposure, bringing you in contact with people who are in the sector. So Varalakshmi is one of us, and she will be speaking about what she has done and her job profile. Some of you could aspire to follow in her footsteps. Last month we did with sustainability head of Mahindra. We started with a person like Eric Solheim. You've heard of Eric Solheim, all of you? He's a world-renowned conservation and carbon, net zero kind of an expert. So he spoke to us. He knows about Iifm. He came here. He came here and met with the director. We had Sunita Narayan. So we are trying to bring an eclectic mix of people who are in our sector, in development, in environment, in carbon, to expose our students and alumni that these are the opportunities that are there, and also you get to know them. So this is the objective of the Friends of Iifm lecture, and the purpose of having this here, as director mentioned, in person and hybrid, I think we are also on YouTube, is that people get to know from her experience, her career experience, what she has done, and what is the thinking in the development sector. Many of our alumni are placed in World Bank, either as consultants or on projects. In fact, Rohit Mod, our treasurer's wife, she is based out of Bhopal. She is on a World Bank project. Many of our colleagues, in Ramesh, who is Varalakshmi's husband, is also a consultant. So World Bank has many projects in India, and so do other development agencies like GIZ and AFD and DFID. So these development organizations need professionals, and Iifm students can be placed there. So with this objective, we decided to hold this kind of talks for you. I think I have spoken enough, and you have not come here to listen to me. But although you are not eligible to become members of the Alumni Association, you can connect to us separately, individually, follow us on social media and on Twitter, Facebook, WhatsApp. And when you pass out, do join the association, because you will find somebody with experience of your problem outside in the alumni community, and they will be very happy to help you. With these words, I thank the institute for hosting us, and I also thank you for your attention, and I hope that after Vara finishes her talk, you will engage her in a very intense Q&A session. Thank you.
It is with great pleasure that I introduce our speaker for today's event, Ms. Varalakshmi ma'am. She stands as a seasoned leader in the field of social sustainability, currently serving as the practice manager of the Social Sustainability and Inclusion Global Practice at the World Bank. Based at Vienna, Vara ma'am focuses her efforts on the Europe and Central Asia region, overseeing a dedicated team engaged in managing social risk and fostering social sustainability. Her career began at the Energy Resource Institute, TERI, and Action Aid, where she built a strong foundation before venturing into the World Bank in 2000. Throughout her career, Vara ma'am's dynamic leadership has left an influential impact in driving positive change and innovation in her current role. Today, we are privileged to have her as a speaker, guiding us to this event with her expertise and charm. Today, she'll talk on the topic supporting inclusive growth in the poly-crisis environment. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to Ms. Varalakshmi Vemuru.
Good morning, and thank you for making it. We did give you a little bit more time. It's a real privilege for me to be here. It's been 32 years since I passed out of Iifm, and the last time I came was almost 25 years ago, so it feels really good to be here. And Dr. Ravichandran, thank you for the opportunity for me to be here. And a big thanks to my very dear friend, Sandeep, who's also my classmate, for actually giving me the nudge and saying that I should come here, and I am really very happy. So what I wanted to do was, from my vantage point of being the manager for the Social Sustainability and Inclusion Global Practice in the Europe and Central Asia region, to kind of bring that experience to bear in what I am trying to share with you, but also the almost 32 years of systematically working on social sustainability and inclusion issues. In fact, yesterday somebody said, "Are you doing environment?" I said, "No, actually I'm doing social." So just to kind of, I say that to show you how big this world is that you could step into. And it's been almost 3 decades of work across different continents, different countries, at least 50 of them. So that's what I'm bringing to you. This is for your consideration and further exploration, as I would say it. And I think this is particularly pertinent in this polycrisis world. And what do I mean by the polycrisis? The multiple crises, and we at the World Bank talk about the 3 Cs, which essentially is the COVID-19 pandemic, climate change, and the rising levels of conflict and their impacts at the global level. I want to give you a global perspective because you're aware of what's happening in India. I felt it was not very useful for you to hear me talk about India, right? So I thought, let me give you a little bit of a global tour. But I think what commonality across, right, what's happening across the globe and India is that these crises have actually inflamed the long-standing challenges, right, that exist on inequities. And they are actually constraining our efforts at addressing poverty, inequality, and exclusion globally, right? Could I just say next, and could you please run the slides? Yeah, that would be great. Could we have the next slide, please? So we're all aware of the COVID-19 pandemic, right? I mean, the images of the migrants, I mean, that will remain with all of us, right? But I think what is important to note is even before COVID-19 pandemic, the global growth and the pace of poverty reduction had slowed down. You would see from the graph on the top, right? But what happened in the midst of the pandemic was actually extreme poverty has increased to 9.3% in 2020. From what was at 8.4% in 2019. And which means in absolute, it's it's an increase in extremely poor from 648 million to 719 million, and that's a large number. And when we talk about really bringing down the extreme poverty to 3% by 2030, we are way off the target, right? And I think what is also important is the impact of COVID-19 was actually much more disproportionately felt by the poor, the marginalized, and the more traditionally excluded groups. And you would understand this, right? And the more recent data, and the World Bank, I think one thing we do is really work with data, and I would really urge all of you to also do that, is that there's a widening of the growing share of income, with the top people taking the most, and actually the Gini coefficient growing in most countries, right? The rich getting richer and the poor getting poorer. The other graph that I put there is on climate change, and you're seeing it every day. Look at the floods in our cities. Look at the fires in Europe. When 45 degrees centigrade, Europe was not built for that, but it's a reality today, right? So what we are seeing is that climate change is getting increasingly severe, right, in its manifestation. And it's again complicating our efforts at poverty and inequality reduction. And what you see from the graph down there is that the current policies that are in place to really keep the warming at 1.5 degrees are completely not able to, right? I mean, if you see, we're right there on the top, and a lot more needs to be done. And one estimate shows that if we don't do anything, another 132 million people globally will go into poverty by 2030. And the other thing would be that almost 216 million people will migrate by 2050 because where they live will become unlivable. And we're seeing that in Northern Africa. We're seeing that in some places in India where, and in Iran, northern Iran, they actually registered 65 degrees centigrade this summer. So you can imagine that more and more areas will get depopulated. But I think what's also interesting is the efforts that are being made, and we were talking this morning about how carbon pricing policies have actually evolved, and there is now more emission trading systems, and we talked about climate stocks, climate, pricing and things like that. The reason I'm talking about carbon prices and carbon, this is an area that I'm sure a lot of you would like to explore, right? That these are growing. So, emission trading systems have increased from 7 to 25% already. The carbon taxes, there's work on carbon credits, and also on international carbon markets. I think all these are aimed at driving investment, but also behavioral change. If you look at a lot of work on climate, it's about behaviors as well, which is now an emerging field of work. Next slide, please. The third C that I was talking about is conflict. And if you see, the top one is how the pandemic has actually increased global inequality after World War II. That has been the impact of the pandemic. And then when you see the second one is, while the inequality is actually, while it declined, and big thanks to India and China, it's actually now increasing, and it's the first time in a generation. On violent conflicts, the number, frequency, and duration have actually increased. In fact, since 2007, the number of conflicts have tripled. And we are all aware of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, which has caused chaos, right? On food security, on energy security, and that's still playing out, right? And then also across the globe, what has happened is the social contract, that is the relationship between the state, the government, and the people, has actually fractured. It's become very frayed. And there's also lack of trust between us, right? Each one of us no longer trusts the other. And those are really bad trends, because what this really shows is that there would be tensions in societies, and as inequality grows, grievances will grow, and so would problems in society. So just to kind of share that. Next slide, please. So what I wanted to share with you is that we're all so familiar with environmental sustainability, and we're very familiar with economic sustainability, including debt distress and debt management, right? But we have focused less on the social sustainability aspects, which has now come to the absolute forefront. At the World Bank, this is an area of work we've been investing quite a bit, and so I thought I could share that with you. Very simply, we say on social sustainability is that societies and communities that have greater social sustainability are better able to work together, to find solutions to challenges, deliver public goods, and allocate scarce resources. And we know resources, it is a tight budget constrained environment. So it's given the money, how do you distribute and whom do you distribute to and what do you invest in, right? So when a society has greater social sustainability, it has the ability to really do this without causing tensions. Next slide, please. I just wanted to really unpack the next one. So I just wanted to unpack a little bit the three pillars which we call, I mean, you would ask me what is social sustainability and how do I really understand it? So we look at inclusion, cohesion, and resilience of the what of social sustainability and the process legitimacy of the how. I'd like to share that each one, right? Inclusion is important. You would all like to be included in everything, right? So it has an intrinsic value, but also I'll show in the next slide that it's just not intrinsic, it has an instrumental value, right? Inclusion actually leads to reduced poverty, reduce inequality. So there is an instrumental value to actually investing in this. I'll just spend a little bit of time really taking you through these three pillars, right? I think what needs to be understood from a social perspective is that poverty is not just about money, right? Nearly 1/3 of the global population is at the risk of being excluded, either in terms of money, but also gender. You look at the number of women here, gender identity, race, religion, ethnicity, nationality, age, sexual orientation. So there are so many factors that work towards, and we talk this as intersectionality, right? You could be a woman in a rural area, you could have disability, and you can imagine how issues get exacerbated for you, right? So, and actually there's a lot of prejudice, and we are all in some ways, you know, victims to that, right? We treat people in a certain way because they look a certain way, they practice a certain religion. So discrimination actually leads to both poor human capital endowments, right? How much education you have, what kind of health you have, but also what kind of jobs you get and how much money you earn, right? And this is fundamentally what we need to do to address when we look at inclusion. Why? Of course, one thing is the negative impacts, right? One study shows that the countries that rank at the bottom of gender inequality, actually 1/3 of their GDP is lost, which means if they put their women to work or created the enabling environment, the GDP would go up by 1/3, and that's the economic cost. And we are doing that much more because a lot of governments understand the economic cost, right? And I'm just sharing that because that could be another field of work that you could pursue. So in terms of, another study shows that as much as $28 trillion could be added over a decade to the labor markets and as economic benefits by just addressing gender inequality. And another 1% would be added to the global GDP if you addressed issues of sexual orientation. Right? Now you would say, what did we do? What have we done for social inclusion? Simple things, and they would be quite intuitive to you, right? Legal reforms. Who owns land? Is it jointly owned? Should only men own land? Can women own land? How does inheritance work? These are legal, you know, you can actually work at the legal front. We talk about affirmative quotas, right? At least 30% of seats should be for women, or 50% should be. That already creates an enabling environment. Then the whole issue of universal access, right? Every girl should be in school. irrespective of where they come from, right? That's already. But then it doesn't happen automatically. What do you do? Simple things, like how do kids with disability get to schools? You need ramps, you need bathrooms that are created in a certain way, right? So there are investments that you need to make, right? Fostering voice and agency, right? Can people actually have the agency to even ask what they want? Right? You must have seen when you've come here, right, what it took for you to actually stand up, put your hand up, and ask a question. It needs agency, right? And people who have been traditionally excluded lack that. They need support, right? And normative changes. And you know about gender, right? The role of women and the role of men, and we know all this, right? But that needs to change, and it needs work. It doesn't happen automatically. So all this constitutes inclusion, right? How do we actually work on inclusion? And this has been an area of work for me for the last 32 years. The second big thing when we talk about climate is resilience. And from a social perspective, what we mean by resilience is about the capacity of an individual, their household, a community, or an entire society to prepare for and cope with shocks. And shocks could be any. You saw COVID, right? I mean, for you all, COVID is so vivid in memory. What happened under COVID? All the daily wagers lost their jobs. Women were basically at home. The care load for women tripled because they were responsible for everything, right? But then in a lot of places, none of them were prepared. None of them had enough savings to help them tide over, right? So you can relate to them. The reason I'm saying this, you can relate these concepts very easily, right? And so shocks could be of many types. They're idiosyncratic, right? Idiosyncratic shocks are when they're to an individual. You could fall sick. So what do, right? They could be systemic, which could be like food shortages. We were talking about it, right? Which is system, or violent conflict is a systemic shock. So there are many different shocks that can come through, which actually can push communities, can push households, can push individuals into poverty. So building resilience is a very important part of the work. So just 3 parts to this. First is risk reduction and mitigation. What do you do to prevent? You get a vaccination to prevent you from getting COVID. That's one. And then the second thing, and then it can happen at different levels. The second is a coping measure. When it happens, what do? Right? You draw on your assets, you diversify, you get insurance. And all this is to see that we do not have people going into negative coping mechanisms. What are negative coping mechanisms? When you don't have money, you pawn jewelry. When you don't have money, you pull kids out of school. These actually have long-term impacts, right? So just wanted to really help you understand. So what can we do to build resilience? First is livelihood opportunities. A lot of time, climate change will hit people in the agriculture sector much more. You know the rains are coming at disproportionate times, right? So what can happen? Then, of course, reducing exposure to these things. And then, of course, in terms of access to information, right? The last thing I wanted to talk about was on cohesion. If you could move to the next slide, please. Yeah, so you could take a little bit more look at it, right? Cohesion essentially is how do we relate to each other and how do we work each other, right? So between communities, within communities, we normally call it the bonding cohesion, right? This is a bonding cohesion within your class, right? But then between the two batches, it would be a bridging cohesion, right? That you work together across boundaries to work towards a certain goal. But there's also what we call the vertical part of this is with the director, with your faculties, right? There is also that part of cohesion, which is the linking cohesion, right? So in terms of, so all this is important to allow for communities to live together, work together, face challenges together, and not lead to social unrest, which is a big threat across the globe. One thing I do want to share with you is on process legitimacy. This is about how we do things, right? Is it top down? Is it somebody's idea? Is it well informed? Is it consulted? And all these things matter. Because you've seen, like, at our homes, right? My daughter is 26 and son is 20, so I know exactly how those conversations work. When you say, do this, I mean, first thing is no. And I'm sure all of you have said that to your parents, right? But then it's about a conversation to say, why are we saying, what is our experience, what is the environment, and why these are the options, and then come to a conclusion. Then you say, okay, I think I get it. For this time, I will say yes, right? I think that process is so important and which we always forget. I'm just saying, because this is a field of work that's really emerging, and that may be something that you would really like to invest in. And if you see this legitimacy, right, when there are very divided views, right? For instance, forests. Should they be for commercial purposes or should they be for people who depend on them? It's a choice, right? When it is so fragmented, then there's a fragmented legitimacy to the decision-making process. Women's empowerment, highly contested, right? Because there's a power dynamics. And so there's a lot of worry, and I don't, in the upper middle income countries, there is this perception that if women are empowered, they study more, they are well skilled, they may actually replace men. So what happens to the men and their jobs, right? This is a legitimate worry in those countries. So which means this is a challenged legitimacy of a decision-making process. But of course, there are others which is called displaced legitimacy, wherein, you know, you have decisions by governments or people that you don't like and you don't want to listen to. So, you know, there's going to be a contestation. So when working on legitimacy, I think it's so important to first understand the policy and program arena. Second is engage with stakeholders, because that's where you get ideas, you have a conversation, a dialogue. It's not one-sided, right? And then you engage for the long haul. One thing I have learned is development is for the long haul. It is not a magic bullet that, you know, you do something today and tomorrow change will happen, because it is a complex society that we're dealing with. Just look at yourself and you will realize how many thought processes and how many contestations happen on a daily basis, right? So if you could go to the next slide, please. So I just want to take you to this slide because I said these concepts of inclusion, cohesion, and inclusion, cohesion, resilience actually have both intrinsic values. They're good for what they bring, but they're also good for what outcomes they can help achieve. So this is a plotograph for you to have a look. Next one, please. This is my next one. So this is my last slide. The reason I thought it would be good to put this up is for you to really think through as to where can you go. You know, when does all this really matter at the end of the day? How will this help you choose, right? I'll just take one or two examples. The whole ESG conversation, right? We know that in the ESG conversation, do you all know what ESG is? Yes. If you see that there are metrics for environment and some metrics for governance, one area that is very less invested is in the social. We really don't understand what, you know, the social metric for ESG is. What should a private sector be doing? What does it mean, right? That's an area of work, and to be very honest, the whole world, and at least for the World Bank, where we have Ajay Banga, who's Indian American, as the first president, the whole idea is that governments and multilateral development banks by themselves cannot address the huge development problems we have. We need private capital in. ESG is an important instrument. Invest in that. There are huge careers to be made, right? So the second one is on energy. We're talking about change in energy mix. We're looking at coal transition, right? Coal mine closures. We're talking about just transitions. There's a lot of work on that. What does it really mean? How would this happen without really adversely impacting the most, the people who are least able to help themselves? And the last one I will discuss is on livelihoods, because a lot of you are looking at sustainability, right? What do sustainable livelihoods mean? What do they mean in the most lagging areas? What do they mean in fragile contexts, in conflict-affected contexts? It is difficult work because business as usual doesn't work there. So how do you then look at these issues? Next one, please. So I just shared those to just a little effort to share my own understanding and issues that keep me up every day, but also to share with you that as the storm is brewing of the 3 C's and the world is being challenged in this 21st century, I do believe that this is the time for multidisciplinary approaches. Simple, straightforward, those are all gone. What are left are really difficult problems to solve, and which means we really need to think in a very different way, completely outside the box, right? So I do firmly believe, and I will continue to believe and work on it, that even as we focus on environmental and economic sustainability, I wish that many of you would join the journey on the social sustainability, because I do believe that's fundamental to sustainable outcomes. I'll end there. Thank you so much for your patience.
Thank you, Vara, for your very engaging talk and very lucid, and I'm sure it has generated interest in the online and in the in-person audience. I will start by making a small comment that in the World Bank you deal with 3 C's, but in foreign offices globally, I think, we have one more C, and that is China. So China's rise is, the world is contending with China's rise. So we always in the 3 C's, of course, valid for all of us, we have add one more C, which is China. We will straight away get into questions, and my request to you is that if you have a question, please tell us your name and which batch, and also your background. That will help Varalakshmi to calibrate her answer. So if there are questions here, we can start with the audience here. Yeah. Please just take the mic. We also have questions which have come in the group chat.
Good morning, ma'am. Myself, Sivasis. I am from PGDFM batch, and my background is agriculture. My question is that you mentioned that in global inequality, India and China are they are increasing the global inequality in this decade.
Go ahead. Yeah.
So I didn't get that, how they are doing this.
We'll flag a few questions. Any other? Yes, madam. Please.
Hello, ma'am. I am Shivam from PGDFM. My question is pertaining to process legitimacy. Ma'am, it is stated that society accepts who has the authority. So, ma'am, will there be a political bias in accepting the authority? So, ma'am, can you please throw some light on process legitimacy?
We'll take one more then. The lady here in blue shirt.
Namaskar, ma'am. My name is Khushi Johari, and yeah, Namaskar, ma'am. My name is Khushi Johari. We met yesterday on the mess lunch table. So thanks for telling us about social sustainability. My background is in finance, so these days the environment sustainability and economic sustainability, they are the key issues, and they are very open to our eyes, but social sustainability is something new. So what are the key skills and courses that we need to make a career in this path? And in your long stint at World Bank, have there been instances when social sustainability and environment sustainability or economic sustainability were at crossroads.
Good. Thank you. So we'll hold the, because otherwise we'll forget the initial questions. I must mention that Khushi is my favorite student, because in the interaction we had, one of the reasons she said she joined Iifm is because of the Alumni Association. So I'm very happy with her. Over to you.
Excellent question. So first one, Shivashi, I didn't say, I said India and China have actually contributed to reducing inequality, right, in substantial numbers. However, with the COVID and with the 3 C's, actually inequality is now going up, right? That's what I meant. So I guess either I misspoke or you misheard, right? So that's first. On Shivam, on the political bias and process legitimacy, I can give you one example which makes it so clear. When COVID happened, different governments tried to reach their community, their citizens, with messages, right? It was in countries where people believed their governments, that they actually abided by whatever the government said. They said, social distancing, they did that. They said, take your vaccinations, they did that. And we all know what happened in the US, right? So it matters, right, in terms of the process by which a government is elected, by which leaders are elected, how much you trust them, and that then transcends into many things, right? Even what is there, you don't want to see it because you don't trust the person. It happened in Ethiopia, right, where the government said you need to do this, everybody did that, right, because they trusted their government. Democratic Republic of Congo, the government said turn left, everybody turned right. So it absolutely matters, right? Whom you elect as government, who you feel represents you, makes a huge difference in actually following through on some of the policies and program implementation, right? Khushi, on the finance issues, right? Simple things. Lots of you want to pursue microfinance. For whom? We have everything for, and I worked on self-help groups and women's empowerment and financial inclusion for women for almost 25 years, right? We know exactly what it takes to get a woman to have a bank account. In India, it's not now, right? But then I started 25 years ago. In terms of even finance, for whom, what do they do with it? There's a whole lot of work we've done on women's economic empowerment and what it takes, right? So I do understand. I think when you start asking the question about financing for whom, financing for what, financing to reach what outcomes, the social will kick in automatically, right? Because in a lot of countries, 10% of women have bank accounts, and I'm not talking about India, that is why I'm talking about a global, when we look at globally, right? At the end of the day, unless our financial inclusion is truly universal, and the cost of accessing that finance is really brought down, you'll still have a lot of people excluded. So I think even if you look at it from that perspective, there are a lot of things that one can bring in, and a lot of innovations have happened actually in that space. I'll stop.
Thank you. There is a question which has come from one of the students, Sai Sri, but he or she has come in through Akshay Mohanta. Now there are 4 questions. I'll try to summarize the 4. The questions are: what are the key skills required to be good at your career in this kind of job? Then I think a very gender sensitive question: what are the kind of sacrifices that you had to make for in terms of family and in terms of children, and basically what are the, and also competition that you had to face and the skills that you had to acquire in getting the kind of job that you are doing. So basically one is a professional kind of a query and the other is personal to you. And I think that Vara would be important to share, particularly for the women and the girls who are here who are looking for a career, because despite with having a family and children, you have been able to find a good balance in that. So what were the critical decision making points on that? So that's the first set of questions. Anybody else? The person with the mic. There are 2 people with the mic. So one in front. Yeah. Very good.
Good afternoon, ma'am. My name is Shantanu Singh and I am from PGDFM. So, ma'am, my simple question is that what are the challenges that you face in your life as being a post-graduation diploma in from forest management and you make your way through the World Bank? So, what are the professionalism challenges which you faces in your professional careers? So, I wanted an answer on that.
Either this question has been asked already, so she will handle that. Yes, please.
A very warm greetings to ma'am and the sir. I am Saurav and my background is agriculture and the sociology both. My question is, don't you think we normally cross the limit in the name of the inclusion of the deprived? In the sense that the people who are not ready to accept the change, we are forcing the change to them. And this changing of the institution creates so much chaos in the society. And another question, that is the affluent ones who are in the name of improving and empowering the society, they are doing all the things for their sake and for their benefits only.
Yes, one more. I will come to you.
Hello ma'am, I am Anand Raj from PGD SM batch. So my question was, you talked about social responsibility. So in certain countries like Syria and Afghanistan, the conflict has been going on through decades. So what do you think is the problem? Is there something fundamentally wrong in those societies?
That's a lot of questions. Anyway, I will try to answer all of them. So, on what has helped me come this far, right? And with the, I think couple of things, right? Every day was a celebration, right? We did not, I mean, I'm sure it's true for Sandeep, it's true for me, it's true for Ramesh, who's my husband and batchmate. We took what we got and we made the best use of it. And this is a conversation we had yesterday also, right? In terms of how much can you plan, how much can you already forecast for the next 15 years, 20 years. I don't think life is that simple, right? It's about, and the second is finding your passion. I mean, there is no use of working just for money. I mean, money, and we were talking, as money will come because you need to actually create a value proposition for yourself. You know, I tell my staff all the time, when you go for a job, you should be able to tell the person taking you, saying, what can you do for them? And how do you demonstrate both the commitment and the passion, right? Unless you really feel that, it's no use. You can just come, do the job, go home. And you will not be satisfied. What makes you jump up the next day and say, I want to go to work because I want to do these 3 things today, right? I think that's one thing, really finding what really drives you. And that is so important, right? And that only you can do. The second thing is learning. I'm learning even today, I will learn till I die. There is so much we don't know. And the day you think you know everything, you have reached, it's over. I think that zeal to learn, that zeal to be challenged, that zeal to be questioned, and questioning yourself, saying, did I get this right? Now there are more things that are coming through. Did I conclude too soon? Should I have thought about other things? I think this thing about really learn. The third thing is not obsessing. I have seen enough colleagues at the bank, I've been there for 23 years, right? They're so obsessed about their next promotion, their next this, their next that. It doesn't work like that. Your work speaks for you. Do good work. Put it out. Share. Let others see what you bring, right? And this also brings me to the second question of sacrifices, right? And I want to be very candid. It wasn't easy. My first salary was 4,500 when I joined Terry. Ramesh had 1,000 rupees stipend, and that's how we started in Delhi. And thanks to Sandeep, because his family was there, we scraped through. But we were happy then, and whatever I earn now, we are happy now, right? So this thing about to really, and we were talking this morning also, right? Second, be very sure about what your priorities are. And that's what I did, right? When I went to the US, my son was 4, my daughter was 10. And the compact I made with my kids was I would not move out of Washington till my son got into college. And I kept my word. It was 14 years. The good thing was they both have an American passport, which they wanted. But what happened through those years, people said you apply for positions elsewhere. I could not. I did not. But I did not blame them, right? What I did was in the interim, I created some really interesting operations, including working on refugees, which the World Bank did not have a role. And I'm glad that that model that I created, from a 170 million project became 2 billion project, right? I used that time to really do something that gave me the satisfaction, but never to blame my kids and say, because of you. But I do remind them to say, don't say I didn't do anything, I did make those choices, right? And I made them for you, so you keep your end of the bargain, right? But promotion came because of the work I did, right? So I think having your priorities clear, and nothing is easy, huh? There are no quick solutions, whether it is microfinance and you guys think that, in some of these areas, everything, none of it is. And I think 3 of us are testament to that. You have to put in the hours. Please don't think that the person on the other side is an idiot, right? That you would spew something and they would take it, right? Everybody, please invest. It's for yourself. It's not for anybody else, right? Please invest. Nothing is easy. There is no shortcut. But we always say, do it smartly, right? We do make mistakes, but don't make the same mistakes again. So learn in the way, do things in the way that you find useful, right? All of us work differently, right? Even when we write an essay, each of one has a different way of doing it. Find what is the most efficient for you, right? There are no standard formulas. But once you get that, then you build those skills, right? This is all about building. But one thing I would like to very clearly say, you need to have a solid foundation. Nothing tall was built on weak foundation, right? So please invest and put in the hard work, right? It cannot happen overnight. And so, like I said, development is for the long haul, right? And competition, right? I think it's so important to really define your value proposition. What do you bring? And then the competition is, of course there's competition, right? But then you will have the agency and the voice to represent yourself well and the best form of yourself, right? And that's in your hands. So make an effort and go forward on that, right? So it's always difficult, and to be very honest, the World Bank is quite a bit of an American and European organization. It is still dominated by economists, it is dominated by white men and then white women. As a brown woman from India without an American degree or a European degree, it wasn't easy. But all I'm saying is you can do it. Yes, you can, right, if you want to. So it's about how do you build that confidence, how do you project that confidence, and how do you live that confidence. It's in your hands, okay? So I will not be going into Shantanu's question because I think I've answered it adequately. Sort of on your point about inclusion, right? That's why we always talk about informed consultations, right? We are not talking about, it's not binary. Do you want to be in or do you want to be out? No. The whole approach is about listen. This is the diagnosis of a problem. These are the potential options as solutions. It is your choice. Nobody is forcing you. This happens all the time, right? I mean, when we were working on self-help groups and women, they said, no, our women will not go into meetings. I said, okay. Then other women started going, and then there was thing about, they said, what is your problem? Oh, in Nigeria when I was working, they said, we don't want our women leaving the village. We want to see what's happening in these trainings, right? Typical. I said, okay, the meetings will happen in the center of the village, in a room where all the windows, doors are open. You can peep in and see what's happening, right? It's a question of building trust, and I talked about it, right? And then people can make choices. You can't force anyone, right? But I do believe as rational beings, as logical thinkers, people make decisions about their own lives, right? I mean, one of the things I learned living in a village was I would die to live under such frugal circumstances that the poor live. I mean, they make such important choices, right? So that's what it is. Give the information, give the options, be there to support, don't judge. Because people have a reason to make the choices they make. But then when they come along the way and say, you know what, now I understood, I want your help, don't say, you should have come then. Say, no, I'll wait for you, you come, and I'll help you, right? And I think that's about being focused on the outcome rather than kind of, making these binary choices. So that's something I would say. Anand Raj, on conflict, right? I mean, I worked on South Sudan. 2011, they got their freedom. 2012, I was there. 2013, it all unraveled. I mean, why? Why are identities so important? Why is one ethnic group versus another ethnic group such a fundamental issue when we are all facing poverty? I mean, you will know. There's nothing fundamentally wrong about any country, right? There is, there are a lot of, I mean, the World Bank invested billions of dollars in Afghanistan. There are remnants of that good work. But then this is geopolitics at work, right? I mean, you and I don't think we have either the instruments or the tools to really change countries, right? I mean, it's a much longer. I think it's a answer that Sandeep can give better than me, because there's nothing fundamentally wrong about these, and I'm sure in India we have places which, what is on fire today, right? So you think, why? Is there anything fundamentally wrong with India for Manipur to be burning? I don't know. I'll stop.
Good, thank you. And we have a question from our Vice President, Nikhil Mathur. I will start with that and then I will take two more questions. So Nikhil is from PFM 2000. He says, multilateral and bilateral donor organizations are often criticized for interfering in nations' priorities. What is your take on that? How do you deal with it? I think it's a very valid question. We'll take questions from the floor. Sir, there, blue shirt. Blue is the favorite color here, I say. Everybody wearing blue.
I forgot. I didn't know. I didn't get the memo.
Why blue? Because director sir is wearing blue, I say.
He said it.
I am also, my God. Chairs are blue.
I'm not. Yes.
Boss.
Hello.
Yes.
I am Pawan Kumar Simhadri from PGDSM 22-24 batch. I'm working on social sustainability as my CAS with Dr. Amitabh Pandey sir. I was very mobilized to hear you from what is social sustainability and all. I'm simply having two questions, ma'am. You told like the important thing is building resilience. If I consider stakeholder as a village communities, if I trying to build resilience, it means getting them the livelihood opportunities more diversified. And also, like while deciding providing livelihood opportunities, we need to know the technology transfer also. There is hurdle of technology transfer, and how we can decide on the basis of, that is the first question I am having. And the second question, what are the parameters we need to consider while measuring social sustainability? It has to be intervention specific, and also it has to be stakeholder specific. How would like, there is, I'm going through like multiple research papers, there is not enough research has been done this field. I'm very interested. Thank you.
We get your question. Who else? Ma'am, aapka ho gaya. We'll come back to you if this. Yes, sir. Here, blue.
Another blue.
Idhar dijiye. Oh, there's another lady in blue.
Sorry. Hi, I'm Aditi Dusani. I'm from PGDSM batch and my background is environmental science. I just wanted to know more about your work. So any of the project instances that you worked on, we would like to get more insights on. Any one project that has been done. So,
Good.
Yeah.
And we'll take one more. Fourth.
Name
last
is
question.
Asutosh.
Be
and,
brief, please be brief.
I am from PGDSM 23-25 batch. I have a question, follow-up question from the ma'am. As you mentioned that global institutions like World Bank are largely influenced by the white people. And so I wanted to know that although the global south, like India and Japan, these are the countries which have deep ingrained values in terms of sustainability. We are the people who believe in minimalism. While we don't have the funds like the European or the American nations to influence it. So do you think that our deep ingrained values are going to be useful in order to affect the policies in the future, and how the global institutions are going to change and adopt to it?
Good. So, Vara, over to you.
Wow.
First, Nikhil's question, I think.
So, in terms of multi and bilateral agencies actually interfering, and right. So the way the World Bank works, just so that you understand, is we do have what we call a systematic country diagnostic. It's done jointly with the government to really understand what are the development challenges for a country, where are they on different parameters, and what would it take for them to really go where they want to go, right? So that's the first. And based on that, we create what we call a country partnership framework. It's typically 4 years to say, okay, so the cap of money is this. Where do you want to invest? Is it private sector? Is it education? Is it health? And all of this is actually determined with governments, right? Now, some of the things where, I've had very interesting conversations, and I would point to one, is on gender-based violence. And you would all understand that every single government says there is no gender-based violence in their country, right? Because there's no reporting. And that their country is very egalitarian, everything, right? But and in some of the most difficult countries, the way we have come at it is from both qualitative and quantitative analyses. And we've really moved the needle on these things, because it's about understanding. It's not about shame. It's about culture. It's about power relationships. It's about people's attitudes, right? And using data to one is use data to really create the problem statement, to define a problem statement, and then use global knowledge and good practices to say then how can solutions be found. So we've had projects wherein, and coming to the question of one good project, I think I can take that right now. When I was preparing an operation for Nigeria, it was about women's empowerment. The first thing was our women are very empowered. We don't need any operation for that. We are not going to borrow for that, right? So, and it was at a time when women in that country were very active economically, but then because they neither had access to the market, we call it the challenges to women's economic empowerment. They were asymmetry, because the difference, right? The asymmetry in access to markets, access to information, lack of financial inclusion, right? And the biggest one on social norms, because the society believed women were responsible for kids, for cooking, for washing clothes, for sitting at home, right? It was not their job to go into the market and to work. So the way we constructed that was to say, listen, we are not talking about women taking over the men's job. What we are saying is that we are looking at a partnership. Can women with all their skills, all their abilities, partner with their spouses so that their children have a better future? There's more money, there's more food on the table, there's access to education, there's access to health. Nobody said no. And that was a project I designed at 100 million. Today it's a national project at 800 million. It's the same government, right? So it's about really working with governments to, to say that we are not trying to change. What we are trying to do is for you to leverage the potential that is there in your people so that they prosper and your country prospers. And that's the role we play. And I just wanted to clarify that. That's the way we work, and that's the way I have been working for the past 23 years at the World Bank. And then to come to the question of global institution influence, what I said was, predominantly, it has been white men, right? Or people who had access to universities in the US. I didn't have the money. My father didn't have the money. He was in the Air Force. I mean, we lived a decent life, but he didn't have the, the lakhs to send me to the US, right? But then that didn't, so what is changing? And I would like to really bring home the point is when I applied for the World Bank in 2000 in India, all my competitors were people, Indians, but with PhDs abroad. I asked my director why she selected me. She said, because you bring practical experience. You worked on the ground. You lived in a village for 2 years. You understand what poverty is. You understand what happens when there is an epidemic. You understand when cholera breaks out, what happens, right? How do you deal with it? She said, we want that experience coming into the bank. Okay? And that's how the World Bank is changing, because it is not theoretical constructs. We need practical examples. We need practical solutions to problems. And only when you understand contexts and you live through them are you able to find solutions, and are you able to communicate those solutions, right? And so the last question was on Pavan Kumar, right? Yeah. On what I could do is share with you the World Bank's database on social sustainability. We have 72 indicators for which data is available open source, right? And then you can make a choice in terms of exactly what indicators help, and then you can construct backwards in terms of how would you look at resilience for livelihoods. One small thing is, I think what you're looking at is current livelihoods. What are the risks, right? And then what are the solutions to mitigate those risks? That's what I said, right? It's about both understanding the risks and the mitigation measures, and then also putting in place coping mechanisms, right? So it's kind of a continuum, right? Whether it's technology for drought, whether it is technology, or whether it is climate resilient, farming practices, or whether it is drought resistant seeds. I mean, there could be many things, right? I think it's about really defining the problem and then looking at a menu of options, and there's never a single solution, right? So I think that would then help really look at, and there could be insurance, right? So there are multiple options. So how do you then do risk reduction, right? And then how do you bring in behavioral change? It's not as if you tell somebody, how many of us have insurance? We don't even believe in it, right? And then you're talking to a farmer to get insurance and pay premium. So there's a lot of, so that's why I say now all problems need multidisciplinary solutions. And I think thinking that way, connecting those dots would be the best skills you could develop, as you go forward.
Thank you. We'll take the last bunch of questions now, because we will stop by 1 o'clock. So the lady in red for a change now.
Ma'am, my name is Shweta Sharma, and my question is how will the career trajectory will look for a PGDSM student if they want to work in these international organizations? Yeah.
Please.
My name is Diksha Sharma. I am from PGDSM. My question is, India is creating 8% of total global carbon emission. We have pressure from the world to reduce it, and we are a developing country. The pressure to reduce the emission will directly impact our development. So my question is, how you see this? How can we deal with it?
This one, yeah, please.
Hello, ma'am. Ma'am, from the three phenomena we discussed, ma'am, it is quite evident that social sustainability is directly interdependent with economic sustainability. But ma'am, I'm not getting how social sustainability is directly linked to environmental sustainability. Can you give some real-time instance of how a society being sustainable contributed to environmental sustainability?
Hello.
Good afternoon, ma'am. I have one question that how World Bank.
Can I have your name?
My name is Aman Kumar. I am from PGDSM batch 2325. I have done BSc Mathematics. Okay. Ma'am, you have talked about social sustainability, environmental challenges, ECG, and many psychological factors like discrimination. So I want to get the answer about how World Bank is effectively working on to get the solution of all such kind of things.
Just take one more last question. Yeah, the mic ready. Ma'am, please go.
Hello, my name is Aditi Singh. I'm from PGDFM 24. And my question to ma'am is, what are some emerging trends or development in the field of social sustainability that you find particularly interesting or promising? And also, I have one question to ma'am and sir both. Yesterday only I saw the interview of one of the most famous journalists of India, and she was talking about COVID in China. So that question is playing again and again in the back of my mind. So may I ask that question? Only some of the journalists are bold enough to call the COVID virus as the Wuhan virus. And there are some evidence also that that virus emerged from Wuhan only. So I want to ask that are the world leaders bold enough to take any steps regarding like against China, or are we just talking about it? Because migrants.
We will respond to you.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. So I think you guys have taxed me enough. So let me start with Shweta. So the way you can get into international organizations, whether it's bilaterals or multi-donor organizations, is there are different trajectories, right? Different routes. So there are jobs that are advertised, and we do take a lot of people coming from the outside, right? So it's about really looking at, is there something interesting there? Yeah. If you can share with us also, anything? You also wanted to know, no? Pata nahi, conversation chal raha hai. Anyway, so please do look at what jobs are advertised. We have the environment stream as well, right? And we have the social. So you can kind of look at it, what's required. So that's one way you apply for positions. The second way, which is normally done, is people do join different projects, right? In terms of, so you could, so the World Bank lends to governments. So they have projects, so there are a lot of work that needs to be done on those assessments and things like that. When I was in Terry, I used to actually be, working on assessments for the UP Forest Department, right? Because they had a project. So that's one way, right? Being part of the firms that do consulting, so then you understand the way the World Bank works or other agencies work, and then you can be better. Or in the World Bank itself, we have a lot of short-term consultants and extended-term consultants, right? We do take people for specific things that they can do. So you could actually, so I have a lot of consultants who work on gender-based violence, right? Because it is a very specific field. So then we do take them on different projects and they help us, right? And then once you do that, once people know you, then when positions open, you're in a better place to advocate for yourself, both with the body of work, but also the confidence of your presence, right? So those are some ways that you can get into the bank. Now on Isha, right? Yes, Isha. So your question about Diksha. Okay, sorry. So Diksha. My niece is Isha, so I just heard that. Okay, so Diksha, I think what is very clear is, at least for the World Bank, one of the fundamental issues that, we have a new core report called Climate Change and Development Report, and that is actually defining a lot of our partnerships, right? The fundamental essence of that report is that climate action and development need not be antagonistic. You could do both together. In fact, today, I think yesterday, the Prime Minister said that India has actually crossed its renewables target. It was to do in 2030, it's already crossed it. It's one of the 5 countries in the world.
We are a developing country. How did we do it? Right? Because we have so much of innovation, we have a vibrant private sector, we are leapfrogging with technology. None of these are linear processes, right? It's not about you do this and then you do that and then, you know, it's based on commitment of a government, capacity of the society, capacity of the private sector, the civil society to come together to find solutions, right? So if you're reducing, you know, emissions, it's not for somebody else. You're facing, Delhi is the most polluted city. I mean, who is suffering? So the question is, you know, I think it's important to really unpack these problems and then kind of say for whom are we finding solutions and who will benefit and what will make that happen, right? So it's not about, oh, stop growing because. I don't think anybody is advocating for that, right? So I just wanted to clarify that. On the link between social and environmental, right, in terms of where does it matter. I started my career with Terry working on joint forest management in Pinjore. That was a prime example of how social fencing was more important than physical fencing for environmental amelioration, right? Because people said, we voluntarily want to close these areas for regeneration because we believe there are a lot of things, right? The trees need to grow, the grass needs to grow, the water needs to be absorbed, and, you know, water levels need to be recharged. We don't want all the, you know, topsoil flowing away. So that's how these linkages happen, right? How do you kind of look at both short, medium, long-term outcomes for people, and how do you make these connections, right? So it's very context specific. I just talked about joint forest management because that's where I started, and we did see regeneration, and we did carry out good studies which showed the results, right? And that's also the thing. How do you bring evidence, and how do you then take it to the next level, right? So there are many, many examples. There was one question with Aman Kumar, sorry. So Aman talked about bringing everything together, right? How did that happen? I have a really interesting example. So when I was working in the Horn of Africa, if you see the Horn, so it's the Eastern Africa, we had the biggest problem of refugees, right? 25 years refugees were living either in refugee camps or in refugee settlements as in Uganda, but they were living lives of the day they came, 25 years later they were living exactly like that with handouts, right? The UNHCR, the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, the agency was giving them money for buying food and rations, and that's about it. There was no agency left, right? But then there was also issues with the local communities. Okay, you're staying in my neighborhood, you take my water, you take my forests, you know, you steal my stuff, you're getting into my schools, you're taking my health care. So then the whole thing was, it doesn't work like this, right? These are people who left their countries because they were scared of that they would be killed. So it was important for us to work with the local people to say, do you understand who these people are and why did they come? This was their last resort. But we also worked with the refugees and say, listen, what you're doing is making this impact on the host community, so there is resentment. Can we find solutions? So the solutions were found in increasing number of schools, increasing health facilities, working on afforestation, looking at renewables, creating livelihoods so that everybody could, you know, all these factors could actually help with self-reliance, sense of identity, sense of confidence, right? So that's how, and that's how our projects are designed at the World Bank, right? Bringing all these elements together to look at what outcomes are we achieving. The outcomes we are achieving is people have better human capital, people have livelihoods, they have money in their pocket, they have a sense of identity, and you have an environment that is regenerating. So you kind of connect all the dots on that. Now, on the emerging trends, I mean, there are just so many, right? I mean, we are scratching the surface. You'll take anything, take one factor of exclusion, say disability. We don't even acknowledge that there is mental health issues in this country. Forget about finding solutions for that. It starts from there. I started work on mental health in Tamil Nadu 15 years ago. on disability almost 15 years ago, on mental health issues 10 years ago, and today, now they are actually having a major World Bank funded operation on mental health. It's taken 15 years for the concept to take root, for us to understand the solution, and then to scale it up at state level. That's what it takes. And that's why if you start a journey, have the conviction to stay, because nothing is going to happen a day or two. This is for the long haul, but believe you me, when you reach there, you will really feel good. And probably 15 years down the line, you would be talking from here. And I think that should be the goal. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Varalakshmi, for this very engaging, enlightening, and informative talk, followed by the Q&A. So, any regrets in this room for leaving the comforts of your bed and coming on a Saturday? कैसा लगा? अरे थोड़ा जोश तो दिखाओ. So I'm so happy that the director was worried that we'll not have a full house, but his enthusiasm and zeal ensured a full house. And later on, I was worried that you will not engage and you will not enjoy the talk, but all my worries were unfounded, and I am very happy that all of you took so much of interest. In fact, I am getting comments in the Alumni Association WhatsApp group, and one batchmate of ours, the Harvinder Dokia, who has spent his career in forest-based industries, is saying that congratulate the director. He has a very bright batch with him in the institute. So kudos to all of you. I think with that we have come to the end of our special Friends of Iifm lecture in person and in hybrid mode, and I would like to felicitate the speaker on behalf of the Alumni Association with a small token of appreciation. So Amrita, can you just help us? Beloved director?
No, it's for you.
No.
No, this is. I have. See, you have. It is mine.
No.
That's for you. No.
This has to be for the director.
No, wait for the director.
Yeah,
It's for you, my dear.
Mere?
Huh?
No,
Yeah.
it's not for the director.
No. This I only brought. So don't do it.
Nahi like it.
Don't make a surprise.
So I think we have some arrangements thanks to the director for tea and cookies. So please join us. And the questions that you could not answer, we will take it outside this room. Thank you.